Hello, thanks for joining us. My name is Nicole Trevina Flores. I'm the Global Ed Coordinator here at SCC. Um, just want to thank everyone for taking the time to be here and remind you of a couple events that we have coming up. So here in the chat, I just put our remaining book club books for the year, and also wanted to remind you that we also have our staff Global Education Award coming up. So I encourage you to think about someone you could nominate for that. And then did also want to bring your attention to a project that we've been working on for quite some time called the Student Denizen Project, and wanted you to look a bit into that. More information will be coming, but when I have like-minded folks, I always like to give them the info on what we've got going on. So again, appreciate your time, and I will turn it over to Phip Ross and his guests.
Thanks, Nicole, and thanks for all that you do at the college to make things like this happen. I'm very fortunate. We've got two guests with us. Hello, everybody. I'm English faculty on the Lincoln campus. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you, and we have the fortunate opportunity to meet two gentlemen who are working with basically storytelling in the LPS system in a project called The Seat Beside You. I think everyone probably are here because you read that description that was sent out about this project, and I will let them describe that a little bit more. We have Brian Seiferlane, who's on our right, and David Cohn on our left. Hi, gentlemen. I have their bios, and I can't remember if we shared those with you, but we're lucky enough. They have about closing in on 40 years. I'm going to combine this bio in working in media and storytelling, and including, Brian was working with the PBS series Nova. Took him to Antarctica. I thought that was pretty interesting. Both have, I don't know if currently or have worked at Nebraska Public Media on lots of projects and documentaries. One thing that stood out to me is a line, I think we're all programmed for story, and it seems to be a very hot kind of vein in terms of our public discourse about the power and potential of storytelling. I think that a little bit of the danger of it is that it can maybe, the more we use those kinds of lines, they start to lose some of the energy. Storytelling, and I think I'm excited to dive below maybe the surface of just mentioning that kind of a phrase and say, yeah, we all like stories. Okay, what can they do? How do we support these efforts, and what is the real potential behind stories, and how do we allow them to make space for them in the work that we do? This is a long introduction, but a line in one of the bios, David's, is he's always had an interest in exploring stories that help connect communities and the power they have to build bridges between us. And I think I will just take a breath there and let you, gentlemen, want to clarify anything that I may have messed up, what your current titles are. I think you are mentioned that you are at the LPS, maybe the district office, where I'm picturing you. And yes, introduce us to the Seat Beside You project.
Yeah, so I'm Brian. This is David. Yeah, we currently work for Lincoln Public Schools, and we've been here about 3 years. And as luck would have it, we both came here at the same time from, at the time, it was called NET, Nebraska Educational Telecommunications. Now it's called Nebraska Public Media. And we both had worked there for a number of years, me longer than David, because I'm older. And yeah, we did a whole lot of wonderful things there because NET, Nebraska Public Media, has wonderful resources, and they're dedicated to telling media stories in a way that, our 1011s can't, that our channel 8s can't, in addition to doing news like 1011 and channel 8. So that is really where we cut our teeth, I would say, as storytellers. We both worked in local television news prior to going to public television. And so we don't disparage that at all, because we both worked in it, and it's an important part of public media and discourse and things like that. And it's really where I would call it more like the factory work of editing and shooting, because it's so quick and you're doing it day in and day out. And there's a moment when you're working in the grind of daily news where it's very oppressive at first, because like every day you're changing and doing a new thing. And there's a moment when you start to hone your skills enough that that's when you get to start being creative, because at the beginning of it, it's like, okay, I got to crank this out. And how do I do that efficiently and effectively? And then there's a moment when the gears start turning a little bit easier, and then your creativity is opened a little bit. So we both left Nebraska Public Media on our own terms. We still have lots of friends there. We will talk about that place as much as a wonderful place as we will LPS. But we just moved on to do some different type of storytelling, and then take our skills to a place like Lincoln Public Schools, which it's really unique. And we're trying to sell ourselves to Lincoln Public Schools, I would say. I have I would say that with anybody in the room. It's a different approach. When we start diving into the seat beside you, I think you'll see that it's not exactly what you would think about a public schools system doing. But yeah, storytelling is important, but I like that you brought up that it can get overused. I mean, during the Super Bowl, we're likely to hear something about the special story of the Pepsi family, their special and unique story. And so it can get overused. But I'll let David talk for a little bit before we dive into the seat beside you about media and storytelling.
Yeah, I think, to piggyback that too, I like the fact that you brought up that term story can be overused and stuff, because that really is why the seat beside you exists. I mean, Brian and I, we kind of saw a need at LPS to create stories about our students, specifically not our students, not, I mean, we have a lot of stories about staff and schools, but like when it really comes to, do we have a collection of stories that tell stories about our unique students and their cultures? We don't have those yet. And so we wanted to create stories that had depth to them, that it wasn't just like something very quick and fast that was put out, but something that you could really dig into, that would have a lot of meaning, that could also connect other communities and cultures together to help each other understand one another. And so I think the story about Lisbeth and Ilda, for those of you who have seen that video, is a really good example of one video that does it, because it's a 17-minute long film about an immigrant who came to Nebraska and had to make some really tough sacrifices for her daughter, to do what was best for her. And when we show this to people in the community, the interesting thing is you could take two things out of this. On one hand, you could say, well, why are we spending so much time on this one story? Shouldn't we be featuring everybody individually? And like, but if you do that, you don't really get to the heart of what their story is all about. You need a little more time to really fully grasp and understand it. But when you do that, the beautiful thing is other people in our community see themselves in this story, and it has a ripple effect beyond just their one story. And so we hear all these people coming to us saying, you know, we saw this story about Elizabeth and her mother, and we're immigrants too, and we see ourselves in this story. And so that's a really beautiful thing that happens when you can tell a story that has a lot more depth to it beyond just what happened. Or yeah, so I don't know if we're sharing our page right now, but you can see a little bit of the website that we just put out. We are trying, some of our more in-depth pieces, we're trying to also add a little bit of extras to go with it as well. So one incentive for exploring the website is to get to, if you like this video, you can see a little bit of extra stuff that will help kind of teach you about the story, or maybe give you a little bit of a different perspective. Why don't we go ahead and play? Maybe you guys have already seen this, but I think we should go ahead and play "What is the Seat Beside You" to everyone, so that way you get a good picture and a foundation of what we're talking about.
Yeah, this is just 2 minutes long, and please speak up if the audio doesn't seem to be working good enough for you. But it's about 2 minutes long, and just kind of, it was kind of, I would say, almost our internal promotion, to say to teachers and staff, this is what we're doing, and this is why we're doing it.
At LPS Library Services, we're creating something new.
Rolling. My name is Ahmed, and I sit in the seat beside you. What was it?
I sit in the seat beside you.
Okay, okay, weird.
I sit in the seat beside you.
You sit in the seat beside you.
Our school libraries are full of great stories, but we also want to tell your stories. Every year we feature the Mosaic Book Collection. Maybe you've seen it in our schools. Books with stories that reflect what our classrooms look like, what our community looks like. Now, we want to show stories from within our own community. So, you're going to be seeing a lot more of this. The Seat Beside You is a video series with the premise that behind every student, there's a story.
I'm from Iraq. We come from Vietnam.
My mom is from Honduras.
And within every story, there's a whole world. We believe with a better understanding of the person in the seat beside you, the stronger our schools and communities become. We're LPS Library Services. We collect the stories, we tell the stories.
Yeah, a little bit of a half and half explainer of what it is, as well as trying to sell our department too. You know, we work in library services actually at LPS, and so we're really trying to kind of push the message that librarians do more than just put books on the shelf. We tell stories as well. So in fact, the cool little piece of information about this project and why we started doing it, when we first started, I don't know, can you guys see our screen at all right now, or are we still sharing? When we first
We can see you.
Our boss, Chris Steffner, who's the director of library services, she showed us this book, and it's called The Green Card Youth Voices. And what it was a collection of stories from students from all around the world that had a unique story. And so this was kind of the inspiration for where we were going to head with the seat beside you. So our webpage, it really has a mixture of, you know, things where it's like we're just interviewing a student to get to know them. It has a mixture of just showing a snippet or a piece of a student's culture. And then also, of course, the really in-depth stories like the Elizabeth Ilda piece.
Yeah, and I think that promo, when I talked about it being kind of more internally, the time we spend on that talking about the Mosaic book collection is kind of saying to people inside our district, you know, that's a known entity. It's not really to the public, because unless if you're going into your child's school library all the time. But within the district, within teachers, librarians, it's kind of a more known entity. So that was kind of something to latch onto. You guys know what this is, and we're trying to do this in a video format, less so books. So that's kind of why I look at it more as a internal kind of a promo. But yeah, I'll go back to the screen share here, and we'll look through here a little more. There we go. And then yeah, so we've mentioned this story, The World of Lisbeth, was kind of the first one. We started working with our federal programs department and our bilingual liaisons, which we have 20 plus bilingual liaisons that represent, different languages and countries all over the world. They never have enough people there. They're constantly looking for people to fill those positions as our population grows and as we have more diverse people. I know they were struggling for a while to find someone with, Ukrainian background that could help some of those families that were starting to come here in a bigger way. And so we basically said to them, like, you guys are the boots on the ground. We want to hear some stories. And we got connected with Marta Boucher, who is a bilingual liaison. And she said, I've got the perfect story. And Marta she's from Colombia, and she has a little bit of a journalism background. So she was easy to work with right away. She kind of got what we were trying to do. And I would say the difference between us and that kind of like daily news grind, or like we work with the communications department, and they have to, they have to do a lot of event coverage. They have to, when schools have celebrations, they have to go to those. When there's bad things that happen in schools, they have to respond to that. So they're kind of more in that daily grind. And we want to, when we're working on this, we want to say we're not part of that daily grind. So the very first thing we did was just sat down with Marta. She talked to us about everything. And then we said we'd love to meet this family. And we sat down with them without a camera and without the promise of a camera coming out or anything like that, and just listened to Ilda tell her story. And that's all we did. And then we talked to her about what was important in her life and the places that she and her daughter find joy right now. And she immediately listed going to Sunken Gardens, which is in here, going to Walmart to buy food, which we found out together that's a huge thing for immigrants, is having the autonomy to go and use their money to buy their things. It's a more freeing experience than us, for those of us who have grown up here. And then the other one was church. And so we went to those three places with them. We went to Sunken Gardens, we went to church with them, we went to Walmart, which getting permission to shoot video in Walmart, I don't suggest trying to do that, because it's really hard. You can convince somebody to go to a different store, that's a lot better.
It was a lot easier to shoot at a church, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you can see that there's some elements there that are automatically a little different for, LPS. going to church obviously has some problematic things. We're not going to promote a religion. We're going to give you insight to these people's lives. We're not going to Walmart to advertise Walmart. We're going there to give you insight to their lives. It's just the same as the Sunken Gardens. And we let them kind of direct that. So those are some of the differences that you would see in storytelling. We have shown this website to lots of teachers and principals and things, and we have gotten requests after looking through this website of personal stories to, come in and shoot their choir at their school, and do essentially event coverage. And we do event coverage sometimes, but that's not what we're trying to get the seat beside you to be. We're trying to get it so you get insight into another student. And if the insight comes from their participation in one of those events, then we tend to do that. But we all love our children's athletic teams and extracurriculars, but I would say they're not providing us a unique experience into the student experience. So I just want to show you a little bit of this story. First of all, if we didn't mention, this story is 17 minutes long, and we won't show you the whole thing, but there just are a lot of different things in it that I've already mentioned that make it different than event coverage, or if Elizabeth, the student here, got an award, we would 10-11 might come really quick and interview Elizabeth, and it would be wonderful, and she would show her award and they would talk with her, and the award would be celebrated in that 10-11 piece. But unless if Ilda, the mother, was on site, no one would reach out to her. And not because they don't care, they just don't have enough time. They have to, they're scrambling to get out of doing one story to go do the next story, and so they don't have the time to reach inside for in-depth storytelling. So we'll just watch a little clip of this.
Actually, before you play it, I just wanted to point out one interesting thing while you're watching the scene. Think about the fact that Brian and I are behind the camera, or actually sitting by the camera running audio or whatnot, and we have no clue what she's saying. We have no idea. Neither of us speak Spanish. So in this entire documentary that we did for this video, the liaison that we were working with was so crucial. I mean, she really was the storyteller for this piece. So she's interviewing Ilda, she's asking all the questions. Brian and I, we're just kind of watching, and we didn't even find out the emotional impact of what she was saying until later on when we got all the transcripts back to find out. So.
Hola, mi nombre es Hilda Tema. Soy de Guatemala y tengo 3 años viviendo aquí en Lincoln, Nebraska.
Hola, mi nombre es Lisbeth López Tema y mi es de Guatemala y mi 3 días aquí.
Hilda is the mother of 3 children, Lisbeth, Junior, and Andrea. She also has a granddaughter, Brianna de Lila. ¿Por qué hemos trabajado juntos tanto tiempo desde que llegaste?
Creo que fue acá donde vine cuando iba a inscribir a Lisbeth.
¿Qué te impulsó a venir a los Estados Unidos?
El caso de mi hija.
Cuéntame un poco de tu niña, de Lisbeth.
Ella, cuando nació, era una niña bien, normal, ya a los 10 meses ella decía muchas palabras, ya caminaba, daba pasos sola.
When Lisbeth was 11 months old, something awful happened. For unknown reasons, she stopped breathing. It was nearly half an hour before Hilda and her neighbors were able to get her breathing again.
Al cumplir 11 meses, ella se me murió.
¿Qué le pasó?
Hasta la fecha nunca supieron los doctores qué le pasó.
Whatever happened in that moment, it's something that would impact Lisbeth's health forever.
Oh, wow, yeah, this is cold. This is very cold. This is belly, this is mochi, this is bunny. No. Chicken, banana,
Cilantro. Por el oxígeno que no le llegó al cerebro, ella ya no hablaba, ya no intentaba caminar.
As Lisbeth grew older, Hilda realized that the only way to get help or medical treatment was to go to the United States.
Quería ver si podía recuperar a mi hija. Quería ver si ella podía hablar, si acá la ayudaban. Había escuchado mucho que ayudaban a mi hija en esas condiciones así.
But getting the help that Lisbeth needed would come with a price.
Sabiendo que como madre iba a quedar destrozada porque mi corazón iba a quedar en pedazos. Dejar a mis hijos, a mi papá, que siempre fue muy unido conmigo, y traer solo a mi niña. Y lo más triste fue la hora de la despedida con mi hija. Fue, recuerdo que me salieron a dejar a donde me iba a agarrar, a donde iba a agarrar yo el autobús. Me dice mi niño, mami, vete tranquila, no te vayas a ir llorando, porque algún día me vas a mandar a traer en avión. Y me dice, yo no estoy muerto, me dice, yo me voy a quedar acá, pero tú vas a estar bien y mi hermanita se va a curar.
¿Cuántos años tenía tu hijo cuando lo tuviste que dejar?
Tenía 8 años.
When I first met Hilda, I asked her if she was happy.
Yeah, so that's just, I mean, obviously speaks for itself with the, you know, the heartstrings it pulls on. But there's a lot of things going on there. One is we're getting a personal story of a mom. And we are not we're focusing on this mom. We're not in a classroom, and we're not focusing on, you know, the great things going on in this classroom. Later on, we will go with Elizabeth to school in this story. But we are not trying to blow the horn of Lincoln Public Schools right in your face. We are trying to get you with this woman who her story speaks to our whole national dialogue. And it's really important, but that's not something you're going to hear from very often. Now, later on, so Elizabeth has special needs. Later on in the story, you'll hear from a teacher, all the work they had to do, all the programs that the school had to provide to her. You will hear other things in the story, but the point of us is not to beat you over the head with how how wonderful this school is and how wonderful Lincoln Public Schools is. We are trying to get you to stop and listen to this mother's story, which makes me emotional.
I think that is the power of storytelling, though. I think that showcases it, like a good story that has depth to it will always have more impact than a promotional thing that you're making that has bombastic music and says, look at me, look at me, look at me. Like if what you're doing as a school district of Southeast Community College, if what you guys are doing is good, you don't need to be bombastic about promoting it. Just let it speak for itself and be honest, and tell the heartfelt stories that are already there.
So
Yeah,
let me jump. Can I jump in here real quick?
for it.
Yes. So just, I'd be really curious at any point. I'm hoping folks that are with us are what types of connections, ideas, uses of this kind of work are there. We obviously can visit the website. We could use these as possibly curricular pieces, depending on what you're teaching. Obviously, diversity credit, if that's of interest for professional development of some of us here. So we can be consumers like we would, YouTube videos or any other kind of media just for personal edification. We can learn from documentary style narratives. But then we can also think about, I am jumping in here. I'll try to wrap this up, but we can, as somebody has used and researched stories and from the journalism side and as an instructor and writing, working on, of course, my own story, I'm curious about how we use the idea of story to really move people the way that you guys were moved in co-creating. You were co-creators of the telling of that story. And I think instructors, staff are often co-creating story with individuals in and around the school in your classroom. So it may not be taking this shape. I'm going to suggest when we have a conversation, we are influencing each other and kind of capturing these little clips of moments with one another. And sometimes we put those pieces together and see how they might connect and teach us something about ourselves and about them that we're in relation with. I was working with a student in tutoring this morning, and I've worked with him for a couple of weeks, and he's from Syria. And I had not connected all the news about Syria and Turkey, this earthquake, those kinds of stories, to the story that was right here sitting next to me, who had lost several members of his family this week. And that just did not connect those dots until we sat down. And it was a completely different kind of experience of a story that I was in conversation with someone. So whether we're consumers of media like this, how do we perceive it and use it? Do we influence other people's stories and actually make stories with other people the way that you two are? We're maybe not media specialists, but we are in relation and building stories whether we realize it. And it's my opinion that the longer we're in those kinds of relationships with people and their stories and our own stories, that things change. The way that you said you just got emotional, I can feel that as watching it, but you guys are the biggest beneficiaries of, I think, the emotional, spiritual, intellectual experience as co-creating, working with these stories so closely, that I think we have the potential here at SCC to be similarly curating, co-creating kinds of stories with one another, faculty, staff, and of course our students that I think we share with LPS in a lot of ways. Those students, their parents will be likely in the seat beside us. All right, sorry for all of that. I'd be curious though, if the chat, if anybody had any connections about how you use stories shape your curriculum as a story every day. Is another quick pop. Anyway, Brian and David, thanks for letting me jump in there. Yeah.
No, I think those are all good points. And as we think about the things that you all would like to tell a story about, I mean, this is where David and I can go more to like the guys who are working in you know, in local news or things like that. But the number of times we were at you know, an event, we'll just say an event, you know, working for either Nebraska Public Media or a local news station. And, you know, you show up and there's a podium and there's an official there and they've got a backdrop and they are there to tell you how wonderful something is, a program, a department, or something like that. And they're right. It is a wonderful department program. But that's informing and that's not a storytelling. So what we are always looking for, we'll get informed by that person at the podium. No doubt that that person is valuable, needs to be there, provides a purpose, but that's not the story. So really quick, is anybody familiar with the Independence Academy in Lincoln Public Schools? So it's post graduation, so children who graduate from Lincoln Public Schools but need more help with life skills, living skills, to get a job due to special needs or disabilities. It's a wonderful program. And
I think they might be located here. LPS might run part of that project
yes,
in this Lincoln campus.
They have
yes.
several different spots. So
okay.
We one of the stories that you all will dig into later on the seat beside you is the story of a young man who works on the zoo lights. He's part of the Independence Academy. He's got a teacher there. It's part of a whole program, and there's a big program. And I think if we went to the Independence Academy and said, we want to tell your story, they would say, oh, okay, you talk to this teacher and talk to this person who knows everything about this program. But that is not the story that we told. We told the story of this young man who puts up the zoo lights, and it's a community celebration, and then he takes his parents and they look at the lights together, you know. And so that is very different than talking about how wonderful the Independence Academy is and all the services it provides, which it does. There's nothing wrong with that and promoting that message, but as people come to you and ask you what your story is, it can kind of, and you can actually overwhelm somebody in media with too many of those people. And also saying, you know, who else you should talk to is this other teacher and this other professor. And oh, don't forget. And then we'll go to someone's office and they'll say, well, I don't really, the real hero here is my secretary, and I want you to talk to her. And, you know, and so it can get overwhelmed with too many voices. And I think that's part of the seat beside you, is we want to like get it down to this one voice that is representative, even amongst the students. When you watch Tommy's Light, which is about Independence Academy, we chose that student and we focused on him, but we could have picked other students and we could have talked to their parents, and they're all wonderful and they're all powerful stories, but we focused on one. So that's, as you think about things that you want to promote with your department or at SCC is look for, you've got this big story, and what is the real story within it? You know, who's that student that really represents? And now your department is so great, you've got 15 students, right? And you love them all and you want to promote all of them. But as somebody watching something, you really want to be able to focus on one or two.
And would, yes, but even if you're not promoting, if you're just seeking individual personal growth, I would say having conversations with individuals is a very basic way to discover and learn stories. So that's they can, and then we can share them through media such as this, and perhaps even use media tools to have those individuals elevate that story to broader audiences. But I'm going to still kind of talk back that you don't have to, I mean, just cherishing stories, listening, asking questions with individuals, there's real power of storytelling right there, right?
Yeah, and Ilda, just sitting with it, let's forget about the edited piece, that we watched, just her getting to sit even before we had the camera and tell us, these two random guys just tell us her story, elevates her in a way that we don't know, that she's probably not even aware of, but like that we're privileged to get to hear it, and she should feel empowered by telling it.
I think the first step to like unlocking a story is committing time to be with that person. And we were actually just talking about this the other day. We didn't really intend for the seat beside you to have that meaning to it, but it really has started to have this feeling that like when you want to spend time with somebody, you don't stand with them in the hallway. You say, let's take a seat together. When you were talking about the story you unlocked with when you were tutoring the student, you said, I sat with them. I sat with the student, and by doing that, by spending that time, it unlocks something. And so don't expect that you're going to get a story out of somebody or be able to tell your own story quickly. Like you need to be committed to spending some time with somebody and really getting to know them.
Yeah. So there's the getting the story out of somebody is a general kind of a journalist. I'm not knocking it. It's a different, that word is interesting to me as, somebody who's written about and interviewed and taken notes and written stories, that there is that getting that story for sure. But, sharing and co-creating, that there's something just very interpersonal at a basic level, that we don't, just that interaction is very powerful before, as stories wander and weave their ways around our days, the conversation still
I love
sharing story. Yeah.
I love that I love public schools was mentioned, because when David and I came here, and we have, we have a lot of, like, we record and stream the board meetings, the school board meetings, so I'll just say it, incredibly boring kind of stuff, and that's part of what we have to do. And we really, where our heart is with the seat beside you. And we knew we wanted to do something like the seat beside you when we got here, but we weren't quite sure how to do it, how LPS was going to receive it, all those kind of questions, how we were going to develop it. And so, like, within the first couple of months of working here, we went to go visit iHeart Public Schools just to see what they do and how they do it on a little closer level. And we've it's not hard around here to say we're modeling ourselves after iHeart Public Schools, because people around here are pretty big fans of iHeart Public Schools.
We love what they do for sure. Yeah. Do you guys have any questions for us? Or
Yeah, anything.
Yeah, David and Brian, I did not so much a question, but I love the title. I'm unfamiliar with the work. I will soon be very familiar with it. I'm so intrigued. But and I like the part you said there's been the seat beside you that you need to get to know. You sat with people. The way when I first heard your title, what reminded me or struck me at first was being, let's say, at a sporting event or a football game, and you have two completely different people from two completely different walks of life, and it's the person sitting right beside you, and you've discovered you have one thing in common. You're at this event. You both share that, and who knows what other perspectives or whatever experiences you also have in common, but you're starting with that. Both of you are at this particular moment at this time through randomness in a way, but also a connectability, and that you both are enjoying whatever it is you've come to visit. But then when you put it about spending the time with people, then I thought that added such a deeper level, I think, to the way that you titled this work. And it I'm sort of a title person. It speaks volumes to me. Your title is almost a hyperlink to what's going to come. As you then, so I love that it's thematic, of course, but I love the point that there's everything, there's a connectability and between almost all people in walks of life. I thought it was fantastically titled and themed.
The original title was actually, Brian came up with the title, and he wanted to call it A Whole World in the Seat Beside You. And I was like, no, I don't know how to work. It's way too long, dude. Like, it's too long of a title. But then we shortened it to The Seat Beside You, but we ended up keeping it because every single episode, when you watch the videos, you'll now notice it starts off with the text that comes on the screen, and it says A Whole World In, and then The Seat Beside You comes up. And so all the things that you're talking about are kind of in that.
I can tell just by your response which one of you does the editing.
We both kind of divide and conquer everything.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, speaking again about coming from a place like NET, you know, we had people that did graphic, you know, if you needed a graphic, they did that there. And like here, we've had to figure out how to do, if you wanted to promote something, you know, you had a team of people, or at least a person that would help you do that. And here that it's really just us that are doing it.
Yeah, we're really fortunate that we were able to come together. I mean, we were close friends at NET. We worked really good together there. In fact, Brian was, when I applied for this job, I had to have some references, you know, so I put him on it as a reference, you know, and we're going for the same job, which was kind of funny.
Wow.
But,
yeah. I was going to mention on this, on the Lisbeth story, just as an example. So Lisbeth actually goes to Prescott Elementary, which is where my sons happened to go. And they knew Elizabeth. And if you watch the full story, you'll find out that like they had to discover that not only was she not understanding or speaking English, that she just struggled with Spanish as well. Like, and the kindergarten teacher talks about how she would spend, you know, whole classes just screaming. So my son actually told me, he was like, yeah, you know, I knew Elizabeth, but she would just, he saw her as, you know, a girl in his CLC program who was kind of rude and would kind of like grab things, and she didn't quite grasp the concept of sharing, you know, and she didn't have those verbal skills. And I really just don't think he understood that until he saw this story, that like there are many things going on here. And in public schools, that's what happens. We all get thrown together, and then it's hey, you're going to learn about world history now, all of you, all at the same time. And then the bell's going to ring and you're all going to get out of here. And you might be wondering, you know, why this person next to me smells the way they smell, and it could be as simple as the food they cook at home.
You saying I stink, man?
Yeah. And then you could, why is this person so quiet in class? They don't have the language skills, just little things like that are what we want people to think about. There's a story on here about Sir Saul, the Yazidi New Year celebration. And as you watch that one, I think our regret on that is that we didn't start with a student right in class and follow them to that celebration. We kind of show the whole celebration and you get some insight there. But what an insight for fellow students would that be to know that this celebration takes place on a Wednesday every year in April. And so maybe that's why this student is tired on these particular days, because the most important holiday for them happens on a Wednesday in April, and nothing's going to change that for them. And they're going to go, and think about the insight just for a teacher who doesn't know that. And it's like, when this kid leaves on this Wednesday afternoon, they're going to like the most important thing in their world. Do we have a question in the
we have
Christy,
some what's
I
that,
just
Dave?
want to point out, I like what Christy said about getting students to open up by asking about achievements. I mean, I think that's a really great way. If you can tap into what people are passionate about, what a great way to connect.
Yeah, we were just in a classroom we were doing a story about solar cars, and it really is about kids making solar cars. It's kind of a surfacey level story, but boy, I witnessed this teacher, like how much power she wielded over the classroom by saying, we're going to spend 10 minutes on what you did this weekend. Everybody's going to be short, but I'm going to go to everybody. And the kids were just jacked. They were on point. They were so excited to do it. And because because I'm sitting there in the seat and I really want to say what I did this weekend, I am patiently listening to everybody else. Maybe not because I'm a great person, but because I want to get to what I want to say, what I did. And just that little moment of letting someone say their piece, I think, a bunch of screwball, sixth graders, they were all like that.
How long have you been doing this project? When did it start? Yeah.
We really started we've been at LPS for 3 years, and honestly, we started talking about it right away, but it was just a lot of talk for probably about a year and a half. And so, I mean, I guess you could say that that's part of the process. We needed that in order to get to where we are now.
And the website has just gone public in January. So we're really, we're trying to promote a lot inside LPS, because we have I want everybody to see this. We have a spot on our screen. We want to hear your story, and that'll take you to a form. And we really can't be everywhere. We can't, there's no way we're going to know better than a teacher, than a librarian, than even a custodian about what's special in a particular school. We won't know that. And so we're really relying on people to, a teacher that has got something that is really, unique and personal and can tell us something about ourselves, to let us know about it. But I think to that extent, they are used to only talking about, because you only get one shot at media people, even if it's internally. They're used to like, well, we need to save this for when we have our big whatever celebration. That's what we need to let them know. We can't let them know about these tiny little stories.
Mm.
Mhm.
Well, I'll be interested in, I hope, I don't know if I'll ever hear this, and how these stories are used for professional development with instructors and curriculum leaders in LPS, and how that might be another model for other schools to sit beside folks and embrace one another's stories in the way that you guys get to do. And so I'm really
Yeah, if you
appreciative
have
if
any
there's
teachers at SCC that end up utilizing any videos, we would love to hear some of that feedback too, so we can explain just how they're being used and stuff, and it might give our teachers ideas as well. So
appreciate that. Okay, well, I think again, thank you, Brian and David, and everybody who's joined us today. Any other closing thoughts or comments? Well,
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah, this
thank
is
you
great.
guys.
Thanks,
We
David.
love doing this, so thank you.
awesome. Thanks again.
Thanks, everyone. Have
Right.
a great Friday.
Thank you guys. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.